Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and today we are back with more 2025 to 2026 state governments and officials. Today we are looking at the state of Colorado. And of course, that state is out in the Midwest, one of those just block square states. Um, I'm trying to remember exactly where it sits. I'm wanting to say north of I can't think of exactly what it's north of, but it's below Montana, to the west of the Dakotas and Nebraska. I think it's also connected on its western side by Wyoming. And if I remember right, it is part of the four square point, uh, a point where four states meet. So yeah, but it's in that Old West. When you think of Old West, it's kind of that area. Um, it's known mainly for its largest city, Denver. Um, but yeah, now Colorado. Let's go ahead and take a look at the government here. Becomes a state in 1876. Let's see. Legislative, executive, judicial, like we said, very similar to the way the federal and the previous state governments are. That's going to be something we see a lot of. The three-legged stool of government. Your executive, your legislative, and judicial branch. Having those checks and balances upon each other means that no branch should be overpowering another, even though our current evil president is trying to completely upturn that. Anyway, yeah. Let's dig in here. Three branches. Executive branch has the governor, legislative, the General Assembly, which actually divides down into two houses, as does most legislative chambers, into a bicameral um, assembly of an upper house, the Senate, lower house, House of Representatives. And of course, the judicial branch, which has the Supreme Court. And the government itself was created by the Constitution of the state of Colorado and allows for direct participation of the electorate by initiative, referendum, recall, and ratification. So there are moments. It's not just simply the legislature votes on it and the governor signs it. Some things are set up for a direct vote by the people. And this isn't the first time we've seen this. We see California does a similar thing. For the executive, there are 5 statewide elected officers in the executive branch. At the top, you have, for governor, Jared Polis, who is a Democrat. For lieutenant governor, you have Diane Primavera. For Secretary of State, Diane is a Democrat. For Secretary of State, you have one Jena Griswold. Yeah. And she is a Democrat. For Attorney General, we have Phil Weiser. And of course, he is a Democrat as well. And for State Treasurer, you have Dave Young, who is also a Democrat. Yeah, there he is, Dave Young. So, that gives us a look at the elected officials in the executive branch. The lieutenant governor is elected on a ticket with the governor, so it runs as a running mate system. All statewide elected officials serve 4-year terms. So, are they saying all statewide executive or just statewide period? Anyway, 4-year terms. Other elected executive branch officials. There are other elected members of the Colorado State Board of Education, and the regents of the University of Colorado are elected from districts coterminous with Colorado's congressional districts or at large. As a result, the governor does not have direct management authority over either the Department of Education or any of the state's institutions of higher education. So they're kind of independent because the Board of Education and regents for the University of Colorado aren't under direct management of the governor. So not bad. Let's see. What do they say on the Colorado State Board of Education? There are 8 districts and therefore 9 members. So that you're always able to break tie votes. You don't want tie votes in situations like that. According to Wikipedia, the current members are Lisa Escarcega or Escarcega, Kathy Gebhardt, Sherry Wright, Christy Burton Brown, Steve Durham, Rebecca McClellan, who is the chair, Carla Esser, Yasmin Navarro, who is the vice chair, and Kathy Plummer. So those are supposedly your current members of the Colorado Board of Education. 3, 4, 5 Democrats, 4 Republicans. So I think most people kind of think Democrat or Colorado's mostly Democrat. I'd say it more likely leans Democrat, but there's still a big Republican base there as well. So it's kind of an interesting purple the state is. Now we've looked at the Board of Education. Let's look at the regents. Of the University of Colorado. Oh, 9 voting members. Wanda James, Callie Renison, who is chair, Ray Scott, Frank McNulty, Ken Montera, who is vice chair, Ilana Dubin Spiegel, Norbert Chavez, and Elliot Hood are your apparently current members of the University of Colorado Board of Regents. And again, we're looking at a 5-4 Democrat to Republican setup. Like I said, there's a lot more red in Colorado than people think, though it still tends to lean Democrat. It's not there for the crazy Republican antics as ours in some deeper red states. But anyway, now let's go ahead and you've got departments which are your cabinet members. So let's look at the cabinet. You have the Department of Public Safety, which is run by Stan Hilke. The Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing, run by Kim Bimesteffer. The Department of Personnel and Administration, run by Tony Gherardini. The Department of Regulatory Agencies, run by Patty Salazar. Department of Corrections, run by Andre Stansel. Department of Human Services, run by Michelle Barnes. Department of Economic Development and International Trade, run by Eve Lieberman. Department of Agriculture, run by Kate Greenberg. Department of Public Health and Environment, run by Jill Ryan. The Department of Insurance, run by Michael Conway. Department of Labor and Employment, run by Joe Barella. Department of Natural Resources, run by Dan Gibbs. Department of Higher Education, run by Angie Pacchione. I'm not quite sure how her last name is pronounced. The Colorado Energy Office, run by Will Tour. And the Department of Revenue, run by Heidi Humphreys. The Department of Early Childhood, run by Lisa Roy. The Office of Information Technology, run by David Edinger. The Office of State Planning and Budget, Planning and Budgeting, run by Mark Ferrandino. The Department of Local Affairs, run by Maria De Cambra. the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, run by Brigadier General Laura McClellan, Brigadier General Laura Clellan. Tried to add a Mac on there. Behavioral Health Administration, run by Danette Smith, and the Department of Transportation, run by Shoshana Liu. So that's a look at our cabinet members. Remember, the cabinet's not elected, they're appointed. So yeah. And here's Wikipedia just citing the same departments here. Regulations are published in the Colorado Register and codified in the Code of Colorado Regulations. Now, let's look at Colorado's state legislature, which the legislature as a whole is called the Colorado's General Assembly. Sometimes we have a House of Representatives called an assembly, but here in Colorado, the entirety of the legislature is called the General Assembly. Again, bicameral with an upper house and a lower house, Senate, House of Representatives. Your Senate President is a James Coleman, and your House Speaker is a Julie McCluskey. And here's your breakdown. In the Senate, there is 100 seats. Right now, it is a 23 Democrat to 12 Republican grouping. 35 seats. I was looking at the seats in total for the whole thing. 35 seats in the upper house, the Senate, with a current setup of 23 Democrats to 12 Republicans. And then meanwhile, your House of Representatives have 65 seats, which have 43 Democrats, 21 Republicans, and 1 vacancy. So yeah. So that means altogether, Colorado is divided into a 65 seat or 65 district state. Colorado's legislature is similar to other states, except that, unlike many states, it does not give its lieutenant governor any legislative authority, such as a tie-breaking vote, which is something that many states have copied federally, but apparently Colorado does not do that. So that is interesting. That's a slight variation from your norm. Let's see. They used to serve as Senate President until 1974, when Article 5, Section 10 of the Colorado Constitution was amended, granting the Colorado Senate the right to elect one of its own members as Senate President. So honestly, the lieutenant governor doesn't have a role much at all in the legislative branch, whereas it's quite different federally and in a number of other states. So it's very, very interesting. Members of the House are elected to 2-year terms, and members of the Senate to 4-year terms. Uh, Senators are elected in two classes, one half one election season and the other half the next election season. House members are limited to 4 consecutive terms in office, and senators to 2 consecutive terms. So here's a state that's limited the number of terms members of the legislature can serve. So 8 years in the lower chamber and 8 years in the upper chamber. Then you have to go for another position, either executive or judicial, in the state, or look to go up to the national level to represent the state. So yeah. Let's see. Special sessions of the legislature may be called at any time by the governor or upon written request of 2/3 of the members of each house, but are infrequent. Colorado legislature does not have an analog to the filibuster. Like we do in the U.S. Senate, which requires a supermajority for approval on any matter. The lieutenant governor does not have the power to preside or break tie votes in either house. And all new executive branch rules are reviewed annually by the legislature, and the legislature routinely invalidates some of them each year. The General Assembly does not have subpoena power. That's something you might see a bit different, because federal Congress does have the power to subpoena. Or it does have subpoena power, however this power is rarely used. So, okay, it's like the federal Congress in that type, in that situation. The General Assembly, so the legislature as a whole, does not have a role in the appointment or retention of state judges, although it must authorize the creation of each judgeship. Whereas federally, the judges suggested by the president have to be approved by, I believe it's the Senate. So yeah. So that's interesting. They have their staff members. Okay, so that's a look at the legislature of Colorado. Let's look at the judiciary, the court system. Here it says we have a few courts. You have the Colorado Supreme Court, the Colorado Court of Appeals, the Colorado District Courts, the Colorado County Courts, Colorado Water Courts, and Colorado Municipal Courts. So that's interesting. A few extra and different ones you wouldn't think of. Let's pull up the judiciary list here. Now, established and authorized by Article 6 of the Colorado Constitution, as well as the law of Colorado. So verify Supreme Court, Court of Appeals, District Courts, which there are 22 judicial districts, Colorado County Courts, for each one for each of Colorado's 64 counties, Colorado Water Courts, and Municipal Courts. What are water courts? That's interesting. Specialized state courts of Colorado, for one in each of Colorado's 7 major river basins. Let's see. Our divisions of the district courts. Okay. And of course, your municipal magistrate type courts. In the city of Denver, the county and municipal courts are integrated and administratively separate from the state court system. So, Supreme Court, the state's highest appellate court. It consists of Chief Justice, currently Veronica M. Marquez, and 6 associate justices for a total of 7. Your Court of Appeals in Colorado, the Intermediate Appellate Court, and has jurisdiction primarily over final judgments of district courts, acting as trial courts, and of approximately 33 kinds of administrative agency or board determinations. It is bypassed in the case of death penalty appeals. So death penalty appeals usually are appealed straight to the Supreme Court. I'm sure the Supreme Court has the power to turn them down, though. So if it's one they think, no, I don't think this one should be looked at. Cases in which a lower court has declared a law or ordinance to be unconstitutional, appeals from Public Utility Commission decisions, certain appeals related to the initiative process, appeals from water courts, interlocutory relief, and the further appeal of cases already appealed from the county and municipal court to a district court judge, all of which are appealed directly to the Colorado Supreme Court. Unlike other state courts, this court is a creature of statute and not mandated by the state constitution. There is a single geographical division in the Colorado Court of Appeals, co-located in the same courthouse with the Colorado Supreme Court in Denver, that handles all the intermediate appellate court cases statewide. The Colorado Court of Appeals does not have any internal subject matter divisions. It hears cases in panels of 3 judges, but it does not have an en banc review of panel decisions as the federal U.S. Courts of Appeals do. So, yeah. District courts. Colorado district courts are the state trial courts of general jurisdiction. 22 judicial districts in the state, which include one or more of Colorado's 64 counties. They have the original jurisdiction in civil cases with any amount of controversy, felony criminal cases, domestic relations, family law, or cases involving minor cases, including adoption, dependency, juvenile delinquency, and paternity actions, probate, and mental health cases. Court filings in district court generally indicate the county within the district in which the action is filed, and the district court generally conducts proceedings in that action in that county. County courts are courts of limited jurisdiction. There is one county court in each of the 64 counties, including the consolidated city counties of Denver and Broomfield. They hear misdemeanor cases, preliminary hearings and felony cases, evictions, civil cases not involving ownership of real property with an amount in controversy up to $25,000, and several other narrowly defined types of cases such as name changes and temporary restraining orders. And of course, municipal courts. In some municipalities of Colorado, there are municipal courts which are not part of the state court system. Municipal court jurisdiction is limited to municipal ordinance cases, including traffic violations imposed under municipal ordinances rather than state statutes, which have maximum penalties similar to those of state law petty offenses. These courts have no statutory jurisdiction over other classes of cases, though the municipal courts do have inherent procedural powers associated with their status as a court, such as contempt of court powers and powers related to the calling and compensation of jurors. Some municipal courts are courts of record that can impose greater sanctions for ordinance violations and are subject to appellate review like state courts. Other municipal courts are courts not of record, which can impose only less severe sanctions for ordinance violations whose decisions are appealed through trials de novo in the appellate court. A small number of municipal courts in Colorado have been granted civil jurisdiction in certain ordinance cases, such as cases involving land use under municipal home rule powers, in addition to quasi-criminal jurisdiction. So a lot of your town, city, local issues. Anything that's a violation of a state law would go to a district court or a county court. But if it's just of a town violation or one of these or local violations, you're probably going to see municipal court. Water courts. The state's 7 Colorado water courts have exclusive subject matter jurisdiction over adjudications of water rights. Established in 1969, there are 7 water courts in each of Colorado's 7 major river basins: South Platte, Arkansas, Rio Grande, Gunnison, Colorado, White, and San Juan. Water courts are presided over by district court judges who have simultaneously been given responsibility for water court cases in each of the state's 7 drainage basins. The water courts are divisions of the district courts in that basin and use the district court's accessories, and water judges are districted court judges appointed by the Colorado Supreme Court. So they specifically deal with the water basins of the 7 large rivers going through Colorado. You often think of Colorado, it tends to be more dry, is what you think of it often. Even though there's these great rivers that run through it. The Colorado being the biggest, which carved out the Grand Canyon. But they kind of keep up with the way the water is dealt with in the river basins for these rivers. Other tribunals: Colorado Office of Administrative Courts, judicial branch headed by the Colorado Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court, and that Supreme Court selects the Chief Justice of the Colorado Supreme Court from its membership, who is the executive head of the judicial system. Let's see, vacancies on the Supreme Court, Court of Appeals, District Court, or County Court. A judicial nominating commission recommends to the governor 3 for appellate courts and 2 or 3 for trial courts nominees. So yeah. Let's see, the governor appoints a judge from the list, and all judges are subject to retention sections. Appellate judges, district court judges, Denver probate court judges, and juvenile court judges and county court judges in larger counties are required to at least be lawyers. So they've got to have knowledge of the law. After 2 years in office, and then after the expiration of each full term in office, judges are subject to retention elections, in which voters can choose to retain or not retain a judge. The vast majority, about 99% of judges, are retained by voters. So they're not necessarily running against anybody. It's just you're running to continue your job, which you've already been appointed to in the first term. So I was wondering if they were elected or not. magistrates, the law, public defenders, procedure, law enforcement. But yeah, that's a look at Colorado's judicial system. But in all, this has been a look at the government and officials for the state of Colorado. As always, educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll be putting my links and sources in the description box below the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.